Future of Robert Mueller's investigation. All right now on Fox News Sunday. And hello again from Fox News in Washington. If President Trump wanted to change the subject from Omarosa this week, he certainly did. He pulled the security clearance of former CIA Director John Brennan and is reviewing the status of 9 other current and former officials. Former top intelligence figures going back to the Reagan administration reacted with fury. In a few minutes, we'll discuss whether the president is protecting the nation's secrets or playing politics with the head of the Senate Homeland Security Committee, Ron Johnson. But first, Admiral Mike Mullen, former chair of the Joint Chiefs of Staff under Presidents Bush and Obama. Admiral, I want to begin with some of the things that John Brennan has been saying about President Trump, starting with him accusing the president of high crimes and misdemeanors after a summit in Helsinki with Vladimir Putin. Take a look.
This is nothing short of treasonous because it is a betrayal of the nation. He is giving aid and comfort to the enemy.
I think Donald Trump has badly sullied the reputation of the office of the presidency. Just so reflective of somebody who, quite frankly, I don't want to use this term maybe, but he's drunk on power. He really is.
Admiral, is that appropriate for a CIA director, former CIA director, to say about the president?
Well, I think for John, and John's an extraordinary servant of the country, but I think he has been incredibly critical of the president, and I think that has put him in a political place, which actually does more damage for the intelligence community, which is apolitical, even as he's retired. So I really don't support him being as critical a president as he has been.
The question, of course, is whether we're blurring the lines here between politics and intelligence. I want to put up a statement that Brennan said in an op-ed, an opinion article in the New York Times, rather, after his security clearance was cleared. Here it is. Mr. Trump's claims of no collusion, are, in a word, hogwash. Richard Burr, chair of Senate Intelligence, wrote, if Director Brennan's statement is based on intelligence he received while still leading the CIA, why didn't he include it in the intelligence community assessment released in 2017? If, however, Director Brennan's statement is purely political and based on conjecture, the president has full authority to revoke his security clearance as head of the executive branch. Can you understand why I say that, to a certain degree, saying in an op-ed that the allegation or the denials of no collusion are hogwash, it blurs the line?
Well, I mean, John Brennan knows, based on the job he was doing before, an awful lot about what happened with respect to Russia. That said, he's no longer in the job, per se. And I worry that what he's saying now puts him in a much more politicized position. I don't think there's any question the president has the right to pull security clearances. That authority is very clear. That said, I do worry about the fact that, one, that John is now in the political arena, and two, that at the same time, I don't agree with the president pulling it. I think I am concerned about the whole issue of free speech. And as long as John is not revealing classified information that he shouldn't, then I certainly think he has a right to speak. As far as the Russia investigation is concerned, I think Bob Mueller will get through that, complete it, and we should rely on him for what actually happened.
Admiral, I want to ask you a question a lot of people have asked me this week, which is, why should a former official, I know you have a security clearance, why should a former official, any former official, keep his security clearance when it's been years since he worked for the government?
It's for a long time, Chris. Former officials have kept their security clearances to be able to advise on critical issues over time. These are individuals typically that have a lot of both wisdom and experience, and there are entities inside the government. There are contractors who support the government that ask for advice in certain areas. I don't find it, I have my clearance. It's not used that often, and the dependence on sort of a deep understanding of what's actually going on is not called for that often. So it's been going on for a long time. And I think for the most part, it's been very useful, and I have found no one that's abused that.
You know, this isn't just about John Brennan, although most of the attention is being paid to him. You've seen the list of 1 current and 8 former intelligence officials whose clearances the president is reviewing, and there are reports that the president and the White House have already drafted documents to remove some or all of their clearances. What's the danger here? Why are you and the 14 or so other former senior intelligence or military officials, why is everybody so upset about this?
Well, I mean, one of the things for somebody of my age, it immediately brings back the whole concept of the enemies list for under President Nixon, and even before that, in the in the early 50s, the McCarthy era, where the administration starts putting together lists of individuals that don't agree with them, and that historically obviously has proven incredibly problematic for the country. So it's that, it's creating a list of political enemies, in particular those who have worked in a government, and some very specifically who have spent their life in government. And I think hearing from Bill Webster and Bob Gates is a pretty strong signal that that doing this would really be off base.
The one current official, a member of the Justice Department whose security clearance is being considered, is Bruce Ohr, who, along with his wife, had links to Chris Steele, the man who wrote the Russia dossier. Here's what the president said on Friday about them.
I think that Bruce Ohr is a disgrace with his wife, Nellie. For him to be in the Justice Department and to be doing what he did, that is a disgrace. That is disqualifying for Mueller.
How big a role do you think the Russia investigation plays in all this? And what if, because it has been speculated, what if the president were to pull the security clearances of Robert Mueller and the other members of his special counsel team?
Well, again, I think that the president has the authority to grant clearances and to pull them. I think pulling Bob Mueller's clearance would create a real political firestorm for him, and I would hope that the president would just let Bob Mueller get through that investigation. There is in the case of Ohr, who I don't know, but there is a process that if the president's concerned about what he did, have the inspector general look at it, and then there's an appropriate official that could take appropriate action based on the investigation.
Finally, President Trump wanted to hold a big military parade in Washington in November, as you well know, and it's now been canceled because of skyrocketing costs. As a former chairman of the Joint Chiefs, what do you think of the idea of this country holding a big celebratory parade for the military?
Well, I had a great privilege of serving for over 4 decades with the greatest young men and women that the country has. One of the things that our country has done is honored them in so many ways. But I'm not one that thinks we need a military parade. And in fact, whatever the costs are, and there have been varied estimates, I think those costs, those funds can be put to better use. The military is the best military in the world. It's the best I've ever seen it, and support of them in terms of their pay and their benefits, et cetera, and what they're doing is what's really critical. I don't think a parade does much for them in that regard.
Admiral Mullen, thank you. Thanks for your time today. Always good to talk with you, sir.
Thanks, Chris.
Let's turn now to the chair of the Senate Homeland Security Committee, Republican Senator